you're never given more than you can deal with. And I think that often when you feel like it's just too much and, things are just completely on top of me, I think that you're just constantly being tested and you've always got that little bit more to give. You've always got that little bit more strength, even when you feel like that's it, I'm done. Life without purpose just doesn't fit with me. It doesn't keep me waking up every day and getting out of bed and driving me forward.
I think what's really interesting is the best relationships are active supporters, not passive supporters. Anybody can say, I believe in you, or you're great, or thank you for doing this. But to actually be by someone's side and walk with them and drive with them and help them be the best version of themselves. I feel like in my marriage, throughout my life and my career, my wife, we've been married 20 years, and she has constantly allowed me to push past some of the limits maybe I had for myself, because she knows I'll be unhappy if I don't push past them.
Well, yeah, 100%. And I think that, especially in the special forces community, a lot of marriages fail. There's a lot of, I think it's like 95%. It's a really high percentage. And a lot of the time it'll be they'll come from this environment and then the partner will maybe want them to go into a 9 to 5 job or do something that, right now you're home, I need you home now, and I need you to be here every night. And it's just not how they're built. And you're basically asking somebody to be somebody that they're not. And that's a recipe for disaster, really. And I think if you get into this relationship, Dean knew who I was when he married me, that I was never going to be just the homemaker doing absolutely nothing else and just, being passive. And I knew exactly who he was. I knew he had to be in this way. And if I ever tried to make him any other way, it wasn't going to work. So I think that's really important, is just to understand your other half and understand what it is they want and listen to them and know where their limits are, and know that even when they don't know, you can still push that little bit further. I see it all the time. We get asked to help with challenges quite a lot. And people will come to us, and with about 5 minutes of talking to that people, I'll know if they're going to actually achieve that goal. And either through their own voice or through their support team, I'll know. Sometimes they've got all the will and all the drive under the sun, but their support team have some comments, and it'll be simple things like, well, if he doesn't do it, we can always do this, or they'll have that backup, that plan B. And you'll see those seeds of doubts inside them. So I'll be like, oh, you're not going to do it. And then other times I'll be like, yeah, these guys are doing it. These guys are going to smash it, because they've got that full belief and focus and the backing behind them too.
Yeah. And I guess relationships have to be the same way. It's just another example of a great team working together with the same vision in mind and working towards a goal where they're both the kinds of individuals that are saying, we're going to smash it, we're going to hit it, we're going to get there, versus the people that are casting doubts or creating those what if scenarios that are negative and not really beneficial, especially when you're dealing with life and death scenarios like you guys often do when you're helping people on major missions and opportunities that you've been doing for many years.
Yeah, and it works both ways. I am Dean's biggest supporter, but I'm also his protector in that way, that many people want to take advantage of Dean and his skills and what he can do. And there's often been times where I've had to say, well, no, you're not doing that. Like we're stopping that. And he'll really, we rarely argue between Dean and I, we rarely argue, but when we do, it's normally because of something else that somebody's wanting Dean to do, or something else is going on. And I'm the one going, no, you're not doing that. Absolutely not. I think one example would be, it was almost like a coup. Somebody wanted Dean to go in with an army in this country. And really, I was like, well, no, because if it succeeds, these people are taking the glory for it. And if it fails, you're on war crimes and going to jail and all these things. But for Dean, all he could see was he was going to be helping people. And from my business head, I'm saying, you're helping these people get rich while you're taking all the risks. So it's not happening. And then we would argue later. He always knows I'm right in the end. So it's all good.
That's awesome. Well, I've followed your story, and I've done a little bit of research. I've listened to some podcasts you've been on, and it seems like there's been a progression, because you've always been a badass. You've always been doing really awesome stuff, but you're now getting a little more personal. Your latest release is diving deeper into your life and your story. And it's almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like a progression, because I have the how to ask for money. and I have, you know, and I've seen your fundraising, and I've seen your business aptitude, and I've listened and learned about how how you guys have been so successful. You're doing things other people aren't doing. But now it seems like you're almost looking back and watching the story unfold, and you're unfolding it for everybody else so they know how to work through it themselves.
Yeah, I think that when we're where we are right now, you know, we're living in California, we've got 3 kids, we've, you know, we're doing well. You know, Dino probably have dropped Prince Harry's name a few times throughout throughout his chat, and people will be like, oh, you know, well, it's all right for them. But I think where we both came from is really important. You know, where I grew up, a lot of people, you know, if you look through my old school photos, so many of them are not even with us anymore. There was, you know, the life that was led took them in the wrong directions, and I had those options many times. You know, growing up, there was a lot of drugs where I grew up, there was a lot of crime, and we had always had those crossroads that we came to, and I had those choices to make along the way. But I think it was really important, one, to say, well, it doesn't matter where you come from, you know, it's how you're going to deal with that and go through it. And two, I wanted to really give the examples of what I'd been through and how you can come out the other end, and also to for some of the instances that happened in my life, I wanted to explain that there isn't a one size fits all in how a person should deal with that trauma in life. And many people want to see, you know, victims or the survivors to act or be in a certain way. And I just wanted to show people that there's so many ways that people deal with trauma in their lives, and if more people kind of talked about it, it could make people feel that I'm not alone feeling.
Tell our listeners a little bit about your story so that they can understand. You know, you can elaborate as much or as little as you'd like, but I think it's important that people understand your story and what you did go through and how you kind of came out, because you were very victorious and brave in how you did this and how you got through it. And that can't be easy. I know it's not easy.
Yeah. So as I say, I grew up in Aberdeen in Scotland, and I mean, I started working when I was 11, and my mum was a single mum. She had 3 jobs. She was a fantastic person, but she provided what we needed. You know, we had our food, we had our clothes, a clean house, but anything extra we had to pay for ourselves. So when I was 11, I got a job which just gave me good food. They didn't pay me in cash, and it was a railway cafe I worked in, and they would pay me in good food, which I liked. But it took that experience and what I learned working in that cafe. When I was 12, I was then able to get another job. And I started working in like a fast food kind of place. And then I was progressed. When I was 13, I got a job in a telemarketing. So I was now in kind of a more sales environment, but I was still 13 and the youngest person in the office. But by this point, mum had started to get a bit more sick. So she then wasn't able to work as much. So I had to work more to cover more of the bills. And then unfortunately, she soon passed away. I had a younger brother to look after. So I then had to cover more the rent, the bills, things like this. But now kind of 14, 15, I'm still a young girl, so I'm still susceptible to things that I wouldn't necessarily know as an adult. And there was older men within the office of the sales environment who like to take advantage of that situation. So nothing. I mean, things happened around that time, but you know, it was a stealing of innocence, I guess, and I moved on with my life. And it wasn't till I was 17 and I was then living down in England. My younger brother's father got custody of my brother, so I had to move down to England so I could still see him, because I'd really raised him. So, and it was while I was living down here, again, older men involved. And there was one guy who I knew quite well, and him and his friend on one evening decided to take advantage that night, and they both raped me that night. This time I went to the police about it, and they both were arrested. Actually, they confessed immediately and then withdrew their confession later on. So we then had to go through the whole court case later to find out that there was 9 other people came forward. During that time, they all dropped out kind of one by one. There was a lot of intimidation and things that were going on around the time, but I carried on and went to court. And the long and the short of it, they did both go to jail, but or to prison, as you guys would call it. But the process, it was a long process. You know, I was pretty much interrogated nonstop. I was, you know, I had the scarlet letter printed on me for the whole time. And it was just everything that I learned during that process at 17 years old. Something inside me just said I didn't want that happening to other people. And then I started learning about the process of sexual violence and how it goes, and in most countries how women are treated. And I wanted to do something about that. And really that's what led me into learning more about the world of human trafficking and grooming and various things. So really since that point, I've worked in either in the counselling field, later became a close protection officer so I could actually go and help people. And now it's more in the preventative field. So it's about stopping it happening in the first place. So, you know, everything's changed since then. Like 20 years ago, we didn't have online. We didn't have all these other methods that predators could get to people. So it's changed a lot in those times. But I often look back in that little girl and I think I don't actually know how she was, because some of the things that I remember, it was like, wow, like most adults would struggle with those types of things. But I think a lot of her strength still stays with me now. And I always, anytime that I'm feeling like this is a bit tough, I kind of look at her and go, you know, deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's rather difficult to look at who you were and how you got to where you are today. And most of us would never want to go back through those things again, but we're also in some ways grateful that we grew through them so that we can help more people. And the challenge is you do remember, you do see what that is, but you're leveraging and utilizing it now to help other people.
I think I kind of, in it, whatever faith or whatever religion or whatever you believe in, whatever the higher power is, I believe that you're never given more than you can deal with. And I think that often when you feel like it's just too much and, you know, things are just completely on top of me, I think that you're just constantly being tested and you've always got that little bit more to give. You've always got that little bit more strength, even when you feel like that's it, I'm done. There's always a bit more in you.
Yeah. I won't go into the details, but I'll just mention to you just as a connection point. When I was a young kid, my babysitter, we had a break-in and she was raped in my house and I was there. And so I went through a lot of uncomfortable things growing up, the fear of not knowing how to be safe in a home, of being extremely overprotective of women because of what I had witnessed. And I was a toddler. So even not even understanding what I was seeing, but understanding a knife in someone's back, cutting the bra strap, and, you know, lots of those things. And I bring that up only because as I listened to your story on a couple of other podcasts and I read about you, I just was reminded, as I used to ask my mom about my mom made the young woman a hero to me. She was like, you know, she told me the challenges. She told me, you know, how her friends turned on her, how it was a brother of one of her best friends that did it. And like, you know, how horrible he was and how eventually charges were dropped because they made her the enemy and the school turned against her. And there were just so many similarities in your story that I remember. But my mom did something really powerful. And that was she constantly, A, talked about it with me, and B, allowed me to see her as a very special human, a very great survivor, something that I have never forgotten and something that it really helped define me as a man throughout my life.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I've got two daughters. So I remember the time that Molly was born and everybody's like, you're going to get this huge overwhelming feeling of love. And it's going, and I did, of course, but the thing that I remember the most was this feeling of protection. It was just this, I have to protect this little girl from anything ever happening to her. And that's always stuck with me. But also with my son, I have to teach him to be a real man and to respect women and to, you know what true love is and know what true sex is, and all these things is so important that you teach both the boys and the girls to be safe and to respect themselves and to have that power within them. But also we need to be teaching our guys what it is to be a real man.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm thankful that you're sharing your story. And that you've always made an impact in everything that you guys are doing. You and Dean together are changing, the world for so many people in so many places in the world. But your latest push is really in this sex trafficking arena, which is becoming a very big area, correct? This is something that is now getting play. Like the Sound of Freedom is I have not seen the movie yet, but I've heard it's changing the way people think and the awareness that people have of something that they weren't even aware was happening around them.
Yeah, I think, human trafficking has been going on since the days of Mesopotamia, since this world started. We've been having slaves and trafficking. We've got more slaves than any other time in the world now, because we've got more, we've got more demand for everything. Like everything is, we're in a world of instant gratification. We're not really working for things. We're getting it. We can get Amazon delivered in 2 hours. It's happening like that. So the demand is so much more. So we need the supply. And that is generally coming from slavery. So that's why we've got more. And I think to be able to address it, we do need the awareness first. Sound of Freedom has given a great talking point for everybody, because there is a lot of pros and cons about the movie. But for me, I've never not been in this field. I've been doing it, but normally it's just let's work together, fundraising, doing things like that. The vocal side of it lately has come out, because it does feel like, well, yeah, we're talking about it now, which is great, but let's make sure we talk about it correctly. Trafficking isn't happening in those specific ways that the movies may be shown out to be, but there is a conversation about trafficking happening. So that's where I know a lot of people in the field, and a lot of the big organizations that I work with that are fantastic are a bit angry with how the movies come out. But for me, it's like, well, yeah, let's take that and make sure that we're then going out and speaking. We don't need to say anything for or against the movie. You can say however you want, but we've got a moment here where people are starting to listen about trafficking. So let's talk about it, and let's talk about how I'll kind of leave the rescuing to Dean or whoever else needs to do it, but let's prevent it happening in the first place, and doing this bit at the beginning that can stop it. And I think that's where we can really make it, like every person can make a difference. Not every person can go and be part of these task force, and the people that do the rescues are just the most amazing people in the world. But every normal Joe in the street can stop trafficking as well by all these little preventative things. So I think if more people could talk in that way, then we could do a lot more.
It's really initiating the conversation. Through every challenge, there's an opportunity. And sometimes the opportunity is just in sparking the conversation. As a parent, I know that anytime something bad happens to someone that we know, or something on television, or any of those types of things, I use it as a chance to talk about what's important about that.
It should be what's important, because I think, especially in America, like I didn't see this so much in the UK, but in America, I see this like divide. Anything that happens, there's like this side and this side, this left, right, red, blue, whatever it might be. And not everything has to be a divide. It can just be, as you say, a talking point. It doesn't have to be about religion. It doesn't have to be about politics. It doesn't have to be anything other than, okay, we're talking about child safety right now. Let's have a conversation and really go into how we can help. So 100% agree.
Yeah, I think the challenge that we see and maybe it's just in America, maybe it's across the world, and I don't see it as much, but what I know is people are afraid to talk at all because they might differ in opinion. And, we grew up in a way where if you differed in opinion, it was curiosity that allowed me to identify what may or may not allow me to be stronger in my belief or weaken my belief, because curiosity allows us to understand. I have one of my best friends from childhood all the way through high school and today. We tend to not be on the same side of most discussions when it comes to capitalism, or he's a college professor. I run a business. I'm a CEO of a business. But we will spend hours and hours and hours talking, not debating, talking, understanding each other. I never leave a conversation where I'm like, he's such an idiot. He's so stupid. No, it's the opposite. It's like, man, I wish I could see it that way. I don't see it that way, but what are some things I can see in that direction? And how can we work together? Most of the time after a couple glasses of wine or a couple of bourbons, we're playing FIFA like two teenage boys. We end up having a conversation that ends up being like, man, together we could change the world,
Yeah.
because that's what you really can do.
Because it should be acceptable. And, if me and you are having a conversation and we're not agreeing, I believe that the first thing I've got is an open mind. If you can convince me of what I'm saying is another way, then we can chat about that. I love that. I love it when somebody changes my mind about something, but there does seem to be this, like, this is the truth. You can't change my mind. I'm not going to listen to you. And it's like, we're not going to grow as a humanity if we're not going to be able to be open to different ideas and different beliefs. And you don't have to agree with everything that everyone says. You just need to listen to other people and understand that they might not think the same way as you do, but that's okay. That's completely okay. There's some really firm beliefs that you can't get past how other people might not see it. But again, they might have their full, look at religion. Like, people will be adamant that this is one way and this is another way. Who's right or who's wrong? There's no real way. I'm exactly like that. And I believe that as well, there's this culture of like, well, he said this 15 years ago and now he's saying this, so he's obviously a liar and a hypocrite. And well, maybe he just changed his mind. Maybe he now been light, or he's been educated about that thing that he said, and whatever it might be. But I think that we're kind of judging people on way too much now, especially with all the access of people's history that people have now got.
Yeah, I could tell you right now, if you're not embarrassed at who you were, then you're not growing enough, because there are many things that I said when I was young that I don't agree with in any capacity today. Things that what it usually comes from is a lack of curiosity. It comes from a defined belief that doesn't come from the strength of knowing it. It comes from it comes from just something that you've heard or how you grew up, and it's a weak point. And after you start to explore, in business, it only takes a while before you get to a point where every time someone comes to you, if you get dramatic about everything that pops up, you're literally drowning every day, because you know how this is. Like, there's all these challenges. So usually, even when someone's upset, the first question is, okay, gosh, I wonder what I missed here. Maybe I'm not right here. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. Maybe there's something that how can I empathize with them in this scenario?
And I think there's a I don't know if you've ever read The Chimp Paradox. It's a really awesome book, and it basically says about how we've got our human side and we've got our chimp side. And if we allow the chimp to kind of debate things, it's all going to go wrong. And especially if you've got kind of two chimps going at each other, then it becomes like insane and nobody's actually listening. And I see often when people are having discussions and it turns into an argument and they're shouting at each other, and I'm thinking, neither of you are listening to each other, neither of you are hearing what each other is saying. And until you can calm down, this is a pointless conversation. Like, it needs to be and you need to be open to hearing what that person's saying, taking it in and digesting it, and being able to do those things, which again, I think for me, I'm pretty good at that. I can listen to somebody, even the angriest person in the world. I could listen to them, hear what they're saying, and then be able to transmit back in a way that they can understand what I'm saying.
I think so many entrepreneurs go through this. And so many entrepreneurs that I've interviewed on the show, so many people that I've talked to over the course of my career and my life, there's when there's severe trauma that's been a part of their life, they've had to rewire their brain in some capacity, and the flexibility and the ability to kind of go in places that other people feel maybe are too rigid to go into. There's almost like a freedom, because you've seen and felt something that you don't ever want to do again or feel or see again. But at the same time, you made it through, and that there's forgiveness involved. There's all kinds of things that stretch you. And maybe curiosity and that entrepreneur's brain, that high performer's brain, is tied to a little bit of that elasticity and outside the box mindset.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the forgiveness is such a good one to bring up, because I think that, the trauma that you experience, I think when we're not allowing ourselves forgiveness, I think that's what's holding us into that trauma, and it's not allowing us to grow. I think once we do the forgiveness part, we've come through this bad stuff and we've survived. I think that does build that high performance brain. I think that it also teaches you, you know, sometimes we're hit with, I mean, I checked mine the other day. I've got 44 things that are pending in our world of what we're doing. And I generally, I don't know if you've heard the saying, eat the frog, but I'll go for the toughest one first, you know, because the easy ones are easy to deal with. You know, we can do that list and then we can put everything off till tomorrow. But if we're kind of just hitting the bad ones straight away, then and I think with that, from that trauma element, we're used to saying, well, let's deal with it. Let's get it done and get it off the list. And then the easy stuff's kind of there and we could flick through that later.
Yeah, we're also good at adding too many things to the equation. And so maybe some of it is, you know, the 44 things, a lot of people might only have 10 or 5, but because you know you can do it, because you know you can bring calm to chaos, we all do tend to maybe take on a little bit more. And then we get overwhelmed, and then we have to actually work through it. Because believe it or not, all of us, every one of us gets a little bit overwhelmed every once in a while, and eating the frog is just a way to help divvy it up a little bit.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I think that's one thing I pick up from everybody that's in this kind of lifestyle. I think the ones that are quite happy with the day-to-day, just kind of normal life, they don't have all that things on their plate. And when they do tell you what they're doing, you think, wow, that'd be awesome. But I remember when I was a door-to-door salesperson and I would be in Scotland knocking on doors at like 8 o'clock at night, freezing cold, snow outside. And I remember knocking on doors and you would open it and you would just smell the food and the warmth and everything. And I used to be jealous, but I wasn't jealous of the nice cozy house and food. It was their contentment, you know, like how people could be content in that environment. Like I always wanted more. I was always had this drive to do more, to be more. And there was a little bit of jealousy of what would that mind be like, being happy, just being in that life.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with some close friends, and they're very high performers, and the difference between complacence and contentment. You know, sometimes people will say, I'm content, but I'm not complacent, or it's the other way around. And there's some uniqueness there.
Yeah, no. And you know, if you were to meet my dad, he is the opposite of me in every single way. He was a bus driver for 35 years. He retired as quickly as he could possibly retire. He lives his life. You know, there's maybe 2 or 3 things on his list to do, but none of that as a negative, because he loves it. Like that is the life that he loves. And anytime I say, well, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? He's like, no, I don't. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, and it blows my mind because I can't understand that or can't get to that. And the other thing about him is he never quite understands how much I do for other people. You know, when he spends time with me, like I'll be in my day-to-day, there's always something going on in the giving back environment. And he's like, but you're stressed and you're busy. Why are you bothering with that? Just ignore that and just stick to your own family. And for me, I say, Dad, but life without purpose just doesn't fit with me. It doesn't keep me waking up every day and getting out of bed and driving me forward.
Sometimes do you feel that you were picked or chosen for this opportunity, and you have this drive inside of you that when you're sitting and you're talking to your dad, and maybe he understands it's who you are, but there's a little disconnect between it, but you also are driven because in some ways you may feel like you were picked, that this isn't, that not everybody gets to come out of what you've been through and help so many people.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wouldn't describe myself as the chosen one, but there's moments where I'm like,
you know what I mean? I mean, I don't mean like the chosen one, but I mean like,
yeah, there's definitely something. And I think with Dean and I managing to find each other as well, because I think one, it's difficult to be who you are, but then to find a person who's the same way, who believes in the same thing, who sees other people's pain and can feel that pain and just want to do something about it. You know, that's to find 2 people that then come together and then can fall in love. And have a laugh and you know, just be together like that. I think that's quite different. And there's so much about our relationship that people don't understand. Like, how can you work together? How can you be together in the way you are? And we, you know, it's not for anybody else to really understand. This is just who we are, and we're both happy with it, and the kids are happy. So
that's all that matters. I think the word that I probably was looking for is the calling. Like it's it's almost like a career. If you're a professional athlete and you're really, really great at something, but you've also worked severely harder than just about everybody around, and you start to see the fruits of your work, but you also know that, you know, every time you picked up a basketball, it was special, or anytime you threw a football, it was special, or kicked a soccer ball. And I think to some extent, that's what I was meaning.
Yeah, and I get you. I think it took a lot of years for me to realize it. I think I always, you can never come to me with a problem and not expect me to try and fix it for you. A lot of people would just come to complain to me, and I would be listening and saying, right, here's what I would do. This is what you need to do. No, I didn't. I just wanted to like have a moan, Alana. And I'm like, I want to fix it. You've told me the problem. Let me fix it for you. So I've always had that in me. And then build that in with, if I see something bad happen in the world, I then want to help. I think it did take me to almost get to this stage to go, well, actually, no, I can help, and I can do that a little bit more. And maybe that is a calling, and I'm just going to start listening to it a bit more, because maybe I did put it away a little bit more when I was younger. I probably had more self-doubt when I was younger. And now it's like, you know, if I get a phone call, can you help me get 5 billion together for Maui? I'll be like, right, let's see how we can do it. Let's do, you know, calling who we've got. We've got a fantastic network. We'll do what we can do. So I don't believe that there's anything that is out of my reach to be able to help with.
Yeah, I think it's funny how we can sometimes think bigger for everybody but ourselves. And what I mean by that is, you know, you're explaining that you can find a problem, solve it, not worry about the size of the problem. But when you think about it in terms of ourselves, it's almost, it goes against what makes us who we are. Like you're not doing what you're doing for your ego. You're not doing it for the accolades. You're doing it because you know you can. And when you know you can do something, you want to help somebody.
That's a firm belief in this house. And it's, you know, one of my books is Who to Help Today. It's one of the kids' books, and it's about, people would say to me, well, how do you find these people that need help? And I'm just like, open your eyes. Everywhere you go, there's people needing help. There's things that you can do every single day. You could be helping people. And it doesn't have to be financial. People will say, well, we can't afford to help people. So Who to Help Today, I wrote just as a way of showing, just in more of a child way, that there's opportunities every day to help people. And if you've got the ability to help, you have to help.
Yeah, I call it the habit of daily impact. And it's something that I put into my life all the time. And it's, you know, you once you start doing things to help on a regular basis, it's never enough, because giving is one of the most selfish things you'll ever feel in your life. Because when you give, and you truly give unconditionally, you're not looking for something in return. You have this warmth, this feeling of satisfaction, of happiness, of joy. And
what can I say about mental health? And I feel that when I speak to people with mental health issues, I'm like, I say, what have you done today to help other people? Like, what have you done? And then if you haven't done anything, then get out there and do something, because I promise you it'll make you feel better.
Yeah,
and
it changes. It's like the sun. If you're dark, you have to get sunlight. If you're feeling in a dark place, the sun, it's amazing how the sun just brightens the entire picture. Well, helping people is the same. And the habit of daily impact is something as simple as smiling at someone as you walk by, or not picking up your phone and looking at it while you're in the elevator. Maybe just starting a small conversation, or complimenting somebody that reminds you of someone that you really care about. You know, it's amazing what those moments can do and how they start to stack.
And as you become that little bit more comfortable with it, you know, exactly those things that you just said, smiling at people, especially if somebody looks really, really angry. If somebody's walking past and they're looking really angry, just a big smile is really hard for them not to give back at the same time. You know, like my little girl, she's 11 months old, and try and keep a stern face around her is impossible. She's got this amazing smile. And I can almost see it in her already. Like, she can walk up to people, and if they look angry, she just stands and stares at them until they smile. So I'm thinking she's already got that in her about making people happy. But, and yeah, like compliments, you can give them freely all day. Some people might be that little bit nervous to give them, but just start with 1, 2, 3, and then it's just spreading this happiness.
Yeah, we are the energy that we put out into the world. And if we want positive energy, then it will come back to us, but we got to put it out there. And I think it also comes to one other thing that probably helps define what your mission is. And that is, you know, when you're aware of other people around you, when you're aware of the scenarios, when you're aware of what's happening around you, you know, I had to explain to my boys recently that they made a joke that I look at everything, I'm watching everything, and I'm staring too long, and you know, all these little things, right? And I explained to them, I said, guys, I'm studying everything. I'm looking at how people are walking by, who looks like they're having a tough day, who's potentially you know, something challenging that I want to know. I am scanning for anything and everything that could be potentially negative to my family or positive to somebody.
That's the start of, and our own situational awareness has got so much worse over especially with technology and phones. And I think that if you can master your situational awareness and you can teach your kids to do the same, those are when things like, that's something you can do to help with human trafficking. You know, if you can teach your kids situational awareness, they're watching out for things happening, they're seeing things happening around. You know, me and Dean are both close protection officers, so we'll always argue about who gets the back corner of a restaurant. That's the seat that we all want.
Yeah.
And you know, just being able to see those things. My 12-year-old, she's got it because she's grown up like that, so it's just natural, instinctive in her. But that's not to say that can't change, because her group of friends all maybe have the phone in their hands permanently. So literally, I just go around like picking their pockets or something, just doing something to be like, guys, wake up! Like you're in this moment here, and your mind isn't looking around you. So both positive and the dangers and the threats is what we could be looking for.
Yeah, awareness. Just it's the self-awareness to understand what you need to come out of your dark moments. It's the situational awareness to see what's happening in and around. And it's the curiosity to actually care about what's happening to the people in your world.
Yeah, and I think the final one is belief. You know, I think that we're almost told by media and things like that on a daily basis that we can't achieve, that all this bad stuff's happening, all this negative things are happening. Everything that I think I'm sitting here, I've got a wonderful husband, 3 kids, 4 businesses, 5 books out this year. I've got all these things going on, and I know that I can keep achieving and doing these things because I believe in myself, and I believe I've got the ability to do it all. And I think that is just something so little that people don't switch on their own belief system in their selves. And I hear those negativity and those doubts, and as I say, the world doesn't help us with the way that and I almost feel like the mainstream media, the TV, wants us to have that negative opinion of ourselves. Maybe easier to control a group of people who don't believe in themselves.
Well, if you're scared, if you're fearful or scared, you're paralyzed often. So, you know, I've counted now for like 4 or 5 summers in a row. At some point in time in the summer, it's the summer of the shark. And on the news media this morning, there was a story as I was leaving to go to a meeting. It said, sharks worsen throughout beaches across the states. But sharks have, I don't know if they're worse or if they're better, but I'm not going to not swim because the news tells me that sharks are worse. Like, it's ridiculous but people will be paralyzed and they will start to repeat these things. And so it's hard to believe in yourself when you're told that you're less than, or that there's something that's not, that people in these parts of the country don't come out in the same realm, or, you know, there's so many different limiting beliefs, and the news loves it because negativity sells. It's like gossip. In the town that you came from, it's easier for people to spread bad, negative news, just like in the high school. Nobody talks about the girl who's getting the full ride to college with great grades. They talk about the girl that got pregnant.
Yeah.
in the school, and everybody knows that story because it's negative, and that's a shame, and that's where we have to be the difference makers.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that they know how to make the story negative as well. I mean, let's take that, the girl that got pregnant in school. That's not great. We want her to go and have the scholarship, but then that baby that she has could turn out to be the most amazing thing in the world. Like, we could always put something good on something that's happening. But
We
yeah,
have that in my family right now. My niece was pregnant in high school, and her whole purpose changed. She's going to school full time. She's working full time. She's raising an amazing 3-year-old. And it is exactly what you just said.
yeah, there doesn't have to be, I've got when I had my daughter, everybody told me my life was going to change. Well, it did. She came along and it was amazing. I've got 3 kids now. Harley was born, and I've released 5 books since she was born. So in the last 12 months, there's 5 books, a baby. We've got 4 businesses. Like, a baby doesn't have to hinder who you are or what you do. And I'm sure that it gives that 15-year-old girl this extra bit of power and this extra bit of strength. And becoming a mom is a pretty cool experience as well. So it doesn't have to be negative and bad all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Usually, I think I don't know a situation that I probably couldn't find a positive spin in some way or another into what we could work out.
Yeah, through every challenge, there's an opportunity. And if you can see it, it's another level of awareness. It's finding and flipping it from something that sounds bad right now, but we can move it to a different space. And that's a superpower. It really is a superpower. And it's the energy that you have to radiate for other people, because when you're able to do that, you're actually bringing other people around with you.
Yeah, and I think you have to spread. I think, I was driving along with my assistant the other day, and she was about to make a turn where we were going, and she stopped and went to the next one. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And she was like, "Well, I wasn't sure if I could do that turn, and if it was me, I'd probably get it wrong." And I just kind of looked at her, and she went, "I was just negative, wasn't I?" And I was like, "Yes, you were." I was like, but she understood what she'd said, and she corrected herself. So that was the main thing. But she's been with me for quite a while now, and I think when she did first start with me, everything was a very negative, but that was the way she'd almost been raised. She'd been raised to believe that she wasn't good enough, and she wasn't strong enough, and she wasn't capable enough. And it has been a little bit of a breakdown of going, actually, you can do whatever you want to do. And she's just started her own business as well, so I'm going to lose her eventually, but that's all good.
Yeah, that's actually a great cycle when you get to work with someone and you watch them grow, and then grow up in ways that are completely unique, and ways that are going to help a whole nother generation of their family, of their friends, of people that they serve.
Yeah, break the cycle, I think. Yes, for sure. That, you don't want to spread what you've been through or what your mom or her mom's mom, like, let's end it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also important for everyone to understand that when you're positive and optimistic and you have that demeanor, there are still times where you get down and you start to find yourself in the cycle. But if you're aware enough, you pull yourself out just quicker. It's a quicker cycle. It's like, oh, this isn't working. Why? This is challenging. I don't know what's going on. And then you have to start, that self-talk becomes really powerful, doesn't it?
And no, Dean calls it, Dean says it with me, the 24 hours. If something happens in our life that isn't good, Dean knows that within 24 hours I'll normally sort it out. If it's really bad, I'll usually take a nap. I'll have like a nap usually sorts me out and gets me into the perspective that I need to be in. And then within 24 hours, that problem we'll have a plan. At least we'll have something going on.
Walk me through your, you just said something I thought was super powerful, especially for our listeners that are moms. And there's a lot of people out there that stop doing things at a certain point in their life. They want to accomplish so much. They have it in their minds. They're going to do it. And then life does hand them a situation that becomes more challenging. Can you give our listeners an idea of how you shift from mom to career to fundraiser, just any story or anything that really empowers people to understand how you get it all done? 11-month-old child, you just said, and you've written, you have 5 books coming out this year.
Yeah, so I've got 12, a 7. I've had the 11-month-old. She was born September last year. So since then, I've released five books since she was born. We've got 4 businesses. Dean works away most of the time, so you do live, MD who has a military husband or anything like that, you're a single mum half the time. But I think first of all is you have to take care of yourself. You know, what you eat, what you put inside your own body is really important, because as mums, we'll generally leave that bit till the very end. We won't give ourselves the correct nourishment, and we'll turn to wine for as a support mechanism, which, you know, don't get me wrong, I'll do now and then. And also just give yourself that break, you know, allow yourself that little moments, but just know that those, you know, for me now, if I had more than like 1 or 2 glasses of wine, I would be done for like 2 days. So I know that I can't do that unless I've got someone else to back me up. So first, the correct nourishment, but if the major problems are coming, sometimes just talking to someone else in that right mindset. And that's why it's really important to have the right group of people around you. Because if you've got somebody negative in your life, or somebody who's not giving you that power, and then when you have those down moments and you talk to them, you're going to absorb what they're telling you. So having the right people around you that you can lean on. And as I've just said, for me, it's sometimes the problem is just too tough, and you just need to take that little moment, that little break. We don't have a lot of days off in this house, but when we do, we do switch off, you know. So generally it'll be a Sunday. That's often our day is a Sunday, and that's when we're, as a family, no phones are allowed, and it's just us being fun and happy, and keeping it exciting, and keeping the things that are on your list. You know, go through those things. Me and Dean do it regularly. We'll look at our list and we'll say, well, is there any of this that we can just get rid of? Anything that we don't need on here? And we'll quickly it's quite ruthless. We'll just cut them off if they need to be gone. And what do we really enjoy doing? You know, put them back up there. What is really, really important, but maybe input them into the categories. And for me, it's, I mean, I write everything down. I'm still really old school like that. Like the technology side of it is not my friend. So everything's in notepads and planners and things. And I think there's just something powerful about writing it down and taking off your list and doing those things. So that bit of organization. But I would say the main thing is give yourself a break. And have that. For us type of people, it's like time is kind of the essence, and we feel like we're always like rushing to get it done. But there will be other times, especially as a mum, you've got to say that they grow up super fast, and you've got to take those moments in.
Yeah, we have a 17 and a 14-year-old, and our one's a senior in high school, and the other we just dropped off at an academy for soccer that is not close right now. So we're going through this this transformation in our lives right now, and there have been plenty of moments where you're like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. But having the right team, having the right, you know, for me, it's my wife and I just leaning on each other. You know, it's everything else. It's funny how that's what matters most. And what I find to be beneficial is sometimes, because there's so many things on the list, I have to cross them out. I have to get rid of them. I can't give this person the extra time anymore. Like, it's not about negative things. It's about prioritizing the most important things.
Yeah. I think if we looked at a good exercise to do now and then is just to sit on a week and write everything down, like write your whole entire week down, like to the point of how long am I spending in the shower? How long do I sleep? Look at your screen time on your phone. Screen time is a big one that people are spending a lot of time on and not realizing it. And then just look through that list and say, well, yeah, am I spending too much time there? You know, I've spent 4 hours on Monday on the phone when I could have been doing X, Y, and Z. So let's be, you know, there's things you can do to the phone to stop yourself. You know, you can give yourself a time limit. You can block it so it'll stop you scrolling. And use these kind of little tools that are out there to give yourself that bit more discipline. But and I think that you know, the special moments are remembered. You know, if we look back to our past, we don't remember the everydays, and you know, am I spending enough time with the kids every day, and am I doing this? It's just those moments to make sure you give them
the right time.
Yeah. And I think for us, for everything that we do that's giving back or helping other people, we get the kids involved. Like, we make sure that they understand why it is that we're maybe that bit more busy than other mums and dads. You know, we're in Orange County in California, so a lot of my daughter's friends' parents, some of them don't work, you know, so mum's at home all the time. She's always available. She's always doing shopping and salons and all the different things that her friends do. But when we talk about what we do in more of the long-term impact to the world, I think I would rather have that for Molly so she can see those things.
Yeah, you can always fall back on shopping.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it is impactful to our kids. I'm old school as well. And when I gave you the acronym for life, one of the ways that I organize my life is I do an inventory anytime I'm overwhelmed, and I write out LIFE on a huge, like, old school calendar, and I brain dump anything that has to do with the who's in my life, anything that has to do with my impact in my career, anything that has to do with my faith and then my energy. You know, am I doing the things? What's just getting it out of my brain and onto paper allows me then to prioritize it and identify what's truly important. Where am I not giving my time? High performers have a tendency, we go all into something. If you're raising money for something and you're changing, you know, the path of some major initiative, let's say it's Maui and you're raising $5 billion, it becomes very, very important in your life.
Yeah.
And what happens is, much like the phone, much like the screen time, if you don't inventory the amount of time we're spending in those areas, even if we're making an impact, it can impede what we actually want to be a core value or a true belief or just the most important things in our life. And so I'm old school too, and I use that like that. And then I have all these old calendars that I go back, and it's kind of fun to look back on it and see where we've come.
Yeah. And I think an interesting bit you said there is, and definitely for Dean and I, because some of the things that we'll be doing on a daily basis would kind of blow anybody's mind. It could be anything from evacuating people out of Afghanistan or child trafficking or things like that. And it'll become like it's really important to us. And one thing that Dean had when he was in the special forces was, he would come back and people would just be living this normal life. And he'd be like, do they not know what's going on at the other side of the world? And I'm like, well, no, they don't, because this is their life. And their problems to them are just as important as the problems that we've got. So I think it's really important not to judge other people by your level of what it's got going on, because, we can't be like, well, your problems isn't important as us because we are doing all this really important stuff. No, it's just as important to them. And it's empathizing with each other is really important. I think we can't just be, we're more important than you, we've got more better things going on than you. It's not like that.
Yeah, so true. Alana, tell me about the books that have come out this year so our listeners can get a hold of it. And you've done some children's books that I think are very powerful. So can you just give our listeners an idea of some of the most important things that you're excited about, and then how they can maybe follow, make a difference, anything that use it as a platform for your impact?
Thank you. Yeah, so How to Ask for Money is the business book, and it's just been taken from all my years of fundraising. I put it together into a formula, which is maps, which we can walk through. It makes it so much easier to get rid of that fear of asking for money and be more prepared when you enter the room. And it works for nonprofits, for businesses, anybody who's looking for, and it works for any ask really. It doesn't have to be cash. It can be anything that you're asking for. She Who Dares, as you've explained, is my memoirs, and it talks through my childhood right to almost when we arrived in America, I think it ended. And then the children's books is Live Your Own Way, which is about a young girl being told she can't do things and then eventually going back and doing all the things she's told she shouldn't do. Who to Help Today is, as we explained earlier, is just about finding ways to help people every day. And Me and My Friends Play, that is about, I took the 5 top immigration groups to America, and I took them and we went back to their countries. So the kids all go back to their home countries, and we learn about those countries, and then all come back together in America, living here. So it's just some things that I thought were going on that would be fun to put into kids' books. But yeah, other than that, it's just everything we're doing, as I say, in the trafficking world. We've got some adventures planned. We've got a couple of documentaries and other things coming out. So it's busy. But alannastott.com pretty much has everything on there. And then Instagram, social media, etc. is all Alanna Stott.
And if you weren't already convinced that Alana is a very special human, and you've probably listened now to Dean's interview that I did just before it, but she was also awarded the title of Member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, MBE, on the King's Honor List for 2023 for her work supporting vulnerable women and mental health awareness. And I know that you've done amazing things, not only here in our country, but across the world. And you and your husband continue to make an impact. You symbolize the I in life for all of our listeners. And I'm grateful for you sharing your story. I'm looking forward to learning from you, and anytime to serve as a resource in the future to somebody that is following, and not only following, but rooting for you, and willing to put in the energy and time to help you be successful. So thank you. Everybody knows where to find you now. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Oh, no, just a huge thank you to you, Scott. It's been really nice.
I enjoyed having the conversation. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.